Hi, my name is Brian Noodleman, and I will be going over the Edward Jones case presentation. I decided to use this presentation, or this case for the presentation component of our class, just because I thought it had, a pretty decent amount of information in it. And obviously, just in case the final case was very hard, I didn't want to save the hardest one for the presentation, so I decided to not procrastinate and just get it out of the way. So let's get into it. I did the entire presentation in the way that the professor wanted it in the syllabus, with those 6 sections. So one of the first sections was a problem statement. So the central problem here is a problem that many companies face really these days, especially older companies, is that due to the changes in technology and the economic changes and demographic changes in our country, the ways that they've been conducting business for years before doesn't really work as well now as it does back then. And a lot of them worry that if they don't, make significant changes, then they're just going to start seeing diminishing returns, and eventually they'll fail as a company. So, um, here due to a multitude of factors, like I said, demographic and economic changes, as well as crazy amounts of competition from countless other small and large um, financial firms, Edward Jones is having trouble staying successful. So, in this presentation, we'll talk about their plans to change their current business strategy to one that they believe is more successful. I'll offer my own suggestions, and I'll kind of compare them to my own decision criteria. And then in the end, I'll offer a recommendation of which one I think, would be the best for Edward Jones to look into. So the details of the problem, this is the situation analysis. There are 3 parts to the situation analysis. There's the details of the problem, the probable causes of the problem, and then the importance of solving the problem. So first we'll go over the details. Basically, Jim Weddle, he took over as the current managing partner of Edward Jones, and he kind of realized that, in order for the company to stay successful, they have to make some major changes. So he started instituting, 5-year plans. So the first one he instituted was in 2006. Then he instituted another one after the major recession that we had, and then finally he just instituted another one in 2017. And this one is the one that's mostly talked about in the passage, where he's trying to make huge changes, while still staying true to what Ted Jones at the beginning kind of wanted, where it was really customer focused and it was one on one. But he knows that that's not totally going to work, and they need to adapt. So um, some probable causes of the problem. The external causes mentioned, baby boomers are concerned about retirement and wealth distribution. So um, you know it says here that um, baby boomers really began retiring in 2000, and their financial concerns kind of shifted away from looking to their financial advisor to accumulate wealth for them, to looking to their financial advisor to show them how to spend the wealth that they've accumulated in order to live the rest of their lives and pay for all their health expenses, um, and kind of just make sure that they're never in a bad situation. So obviously, financial advisors are some are better than others, and they don't guarantee anything, but they definitely do help you kind of um, keep track of this. So one of the biggest external problems or cause of the problem was definitely intergenerational wealth transfer. So this really stood out to me, and I kind of talk about it um, in my recommendations. But um, once all the baby boomers that have been kind of investing with financial and advisors for the past so many years, once they transfer all their wealth over to their children, it says that there will be over 50 trillion in assets that would be changing hands by 2040. So that's a crazy amount of money, and Edward Jones has to do whatever they can to try to keep all those clients. So yeah, they give it to their kids, and they give this wealth transfer to their kids, and their children will also need financial advisors. However, they might not stay with Edward Jones. They might think Edward Jones is outdated. They might not like the way that they really run their business, that they don't have a sufficient online component. Um, and some of them might not even live in areas like if the Edward Jones, which we'll talk about in the next bullet point, but they don't really have a huge presence in urban areas. So if one of their children lives in an urban area, they won't be able to work with an Edward Jones financial advisor, and they'll obviously have to move on to a different company. So, like I said, another problem is the increased importance of minority investors in urban areas. So it says that traditional minority communities constitute about 43% of the millennial population in the future. So that's 43% of people that could be investing. I mean, no matter how small, into this company and investing with this company, I should say. Um, but right now, Edward Jones is really not focused on urban areas, and this is definitely going to be a problem for them, as since the demographic is changing so much. But as we know, they are really focused on rural areas because that was the whole concept that Ted came up with, where he would go to small cities, small rural cities, and he would help those people who didn't have a lot of investing experience. He would help them invest. Um, Another thing is the stock market volatility. The stock market is always jumping up and down, but especially recently, it's been pretty volatile. So that's another external problem. And finally, competition from banks and online. So there's like countless competition. It says here, for example, Bank of America, they purchased Merrill Lynch. So they combine, their huge amount of capital and resources as a bank. They combine that with Merrill Lynch to really offer like a full range of any type of products and services to people who invest with them. So that's really hard to compete with when you're a smaller company like Edward Jones. Also, there's technology-driven firms like Charles Schwab. Um, so they pretty much use like they do all their investing through online means, through online financial advisors. And then finally, there's even Vanguard. No, I'm sorry. There's even Wealthfront, which kind of they're the cheapest alternative to investing, and they basically allow people to just pay a small fee per investment for using their kind of portfolio managing like algorithms and services. So there's no real person sitting behind that, but you do have a computer mathematical algorithm that helps you based on how much risk you want to take on. It helps you decide what you should invest in. So some internal causes of problems. So there's the heterogeneity in accounts. So basically, this has to do with the fact that they don't have any real um, they don't have any real like similarities between accounts, homogeneity. So um, basically, they have some accounts that are 91,000, some above 1 million, but there's no heterogeneity in their accounts, and this makes it hard for them to kind of focus on people. Finally, or not finally, but there's the price of adopting a solutions approach. So this can be very high. Um, a lot of people, especially the high net worth investors that they talk about in here, they might want a lot of products and services that are very expensive that maybe a company like Merrill Lynch can offer them, but it becomes much harder to offer them when you're a smaller company like Edward Jones. And this makes the price of adopting the solutions approach that they're looking for, where they cater, their services to each individual customer. It makes it much harder. So another thing is the concern about relevance to for face-to-face advising. So basically, um, it's kind of been not studied, but it's been kind of surveyed recently that for the newer generations, face-to-face advising isn't really as important as it was for older generations, where they really want to talk to their financial advisor and build a relationship with them and trust them. Nowadays, the people don't seem to care about that as much. It's more about the ease. It's more about the using technology to kind of get into it. There's also high costs of expanding in urban markets because of the high rent and the lack of financial advisors in those places. And then with the company becoming so large, it's becoming hard to train so many new financial advisors. So, importance of solving the problem. If they don't solve the problem, obviously they will stagnate in growth, and then they won't be able to, keep going. And obviously, the older generational clients will eventually move on from financial advising, and they'll transfer their wealth to their kids, so they can't sustain themselves on the clients that they already have. So, some major strategic alternatives. They can transit. These are my three that I came up with. So they can transition to an online-based advising business, not a fully online-based advising business, but still an online-based advising business. They can slow down the growth of the company and allow more than one financial analyst or financial advisor per location. And they can do nothing, which was something that the professor wrote about, that we can put as one of the alternatives if it applies. And it kind of does. They can do nothing and continue expanding in a small rural area into small rural areas for as long as they can. So some of my decision criteria, they can increase their amount of high net worth investors. So that's one decision criteria. Another one is to reduce the likelihood of employees transferring to another company, because they've seen that this is something they've worried about, because there are companies that have guaranteed pay once you get to a certain level, once you're close to retirement. And then the increase of potential success of intergenerational wealth transfer, which I mentioned earlier, was something that stuck out to me. So analysis of the alternatives. So the first one I had was transition to an online-based business. So if you increase, this will definitely increase the amount of high net worth investors, because as it shows in one of the tables that I will bring up right now, the amount of people who use the internet based off education with a college degree has been 55% of their investors. So that's definitely something that people with a high college education, and thus a high household income of $150,000 or more, they definitely use the internet. So this will be something that they would enjoy. It would reduce the likelihood of employees transferring to another company. That it wouldn't do, because transitioning to an online business would kind of probably scare off a lot of employees and maybe even cause the company to have to let a lot of them go. But it would increase the potential success of intergenerational wealth transfer. This is because, like I said, younger populations now, they like the technology-based things, and if they see that the company is getting into it, then they won't, have any qualms about staying with the company, and they won't want to leave and go to a different one. Slowing down growth and allowing more than one financial advisor per location. So this would not increase the amount of high net worth investors, just because it really doesn't do anything for that. But it would reduce the likelihood of employees transferring, because right now they kind of have too many customers per financial advisor. So by allowing them to have more than one, it would probably disperse the amount of work among among the two of them or three of them, however much it might be, and then increase the potential success of intergenerational wealth transfer. Again, it wouldn't really do anything for that, so this only wins with 1 point. Finally, do nothing. Obviously, this isn't going to win with anything. It's not going to get you any more high net worth investors if you go to rural areas. It's not going to reduce the likelihood of employees transferring, because it doesn't change any of their benefits, and it won't increase the potential success of intergenerational wealth transfer, because it's staying the same as it is now, and it's kind of like an old method of conducting business. So my recommendation is definitely to expand into a more internet-based business. So after comparing this alternative to the appendices offered in the case study and my decision criteria, it is the best idea to increase the company's revenues and long-term growth. The company is still in good financial shape and has the necessary assets to hire programmers that can develop an online basis for conducting business for Edward Jones, And I do want to add that the company should not fully transition to an online business